Hello there, Frosty510 here with a quick, just little learnings I'll say. With the Diablo 4 beta, been and gone, when the closed, well, pre-order beta, and then we've got the open beta coming up, there's a couple changes they need to make, and, we're talking big ones. I'm talking a little one today, simple stuff, for the console version here, so console specific, simple stuff. So you see my skill bar at the bottom? I hold L2 and I get another level of skill bars. It's absolutely PoE is the same. They got even more. Just a no-brainer, absolute no-brainer. Something that I'm very surprised Diablo 4 didn't implement, and they must implement it because otherwise you limit the skills, and then you get all these brain dead takes from people on PC saying console, it's restricted because of console, the bar is like that because of console, it's all console's fault. And I'm like, this is Diablo to Resurrected, and they worked this shit out. PoE worked this out on console. It ain't rocket science. It's very simple. It's right there, staring them in the face. Second thing, assigning things to the bar should not be exclusive to spells. You need to have basic attack. So this is something that the biggest difference I think between Diablo 2 and Diablo 4 is, again, a similar theme that Diablo 3 encapsulated, which is the removal of the basic attack. So the idea that we remove whatever weapon it has elemental effects, whatever damage it has on it, we put that all towards attack power, towards skills, so whatever skill you're using gets the increase, as opposed to classic Diablo 2, Diablo 1, the weapon itself actually matters. You actually hit the enemies with that weapon, not a skill with the weapon itself. Now, it also combines with, some skills, so let's not be unrealistic here. Zeal is still pretty damn good on the Paladin, so it's one of those things. But it's an option, and especially early on, you use your attack because you don't have lots of mana. So you just normally attack enemies. And you just bind it, and then you can pick whichever slot. And the removal of that... Oh god, no. The removal of that, it changes the way items work, particularly weapons. Oh, sorry, this is not a good deal for that. Let's switch to square. Okay. So, damn, I'm hitting something with a weapon. Isn't that revolutionary? But it enables you to have bonuses on your weapon that are different from Diablo 3, Diablo 4. So particularly Diablo 4, in the case of having cold damage on your weapon, it applies cold with your attack and with the zeal, but directly with your attack. And poison, and again we're talking charms here, so having poison damage and all this sort of stuff on your charms. Nothing too special on my charms here. And it changes the way that the interaction occurs between the player. You'll go with that. What was it? Charge? It was you. No, it wasn't. Whatever. It changes the way you interact with the monsters. And I feel as though it puts a bit of more of an emphasis on the weapons. So you have much more an emphasis on all the different things a weapon can do. Not just skill levels. Oh, this one? Yeah, here we go. So with like 1 to 250 lightning damage. So you can actually have elemental attributes on your weapon, and then you can counteract, in the case of a barbarian in particular, enemies that have high physical resistance, because you do elemental damage as well. So you can mix it up. So one of the modifiers they've thrown out with this Diablo 4 is adding fire damage, adding poison damage, adding lightning damage, cold damage to weapons. It's just gone. They've removed it completely. And I interpret that as they want the skills to do these sorts of things, but at the same time, with the barbarian in particular, they're limited with their elemental skills. So if they've removed immunities, so again, they've mitigated the great challenge when it comes to that one. So they've mitigated some of the challenges in terms of immunities. I'm in Nightmare, not in Hell, so you don't really get a real true picture of it. But at the same time, I think the message still stands. Again, the games play completely differently. PoE plays completely different in Diablo 4. Let's not pretend like it's similar. Look at this ridiculousness. Look at the Hydras. Everyone loves Hydras. Oh, he's dead. He died. Yes, die already. Come on, come on. So this is cold enchanted and magic resistant, so it's going to take me a little while, because I've got to beat him with purely physical damage. So I'm relying on my weapon to do all the damage, not having the Zeal is boosting the damage. Oh, stop healing him. Oh, that was painful. So just watch me face tank all this. Just stand there and beat the crap out of this dude. Come on, come on. Okay, we got him. Anything worthwhile to pick up? No, we just got the charm. Alright, let's get out of here. Now, we still have resistances and things. That's carried over. That's fine. Oh, it's a crappy charm. Tender Life. Whatever. So again, charms not being in at this point is probably fine. Honestly, charms just create clutter. Yeah. The other, I think probably the biggest thing, the second biggest thing, apart from removing attack, removing the physical weapon onerous, so the part of the physical weapon that actually mattered, the elemental damage and stuff, or the open wounds and things like that. And taking away the... I mean, look how many modifiers I've got on here. Look how many skills I've got. And then in Diablo 4, we've got 3 on a rare, 4 on a legendary, maybe get the 5. And then we got the Apex. And look how many I've got here. And not to mention this. I mean, the difference in... But at the same time, I do feel as though there is a complexity to Diablo 2 that is obvious. And at the same time, there's intrinsic, breakpoints in cast speed and reaction, all that sort of, and movement speed and things like that, where you get diminishing returns after a certain point, and it depends on the character. There is a bit of that. But at the same time, when you go to the character sheet here, I feel like it is clear. It is on a console version, so again, PC looks totally different. But there is a parity there in it being readable. And I feel like the Diablo 4's stat page is just a bit too... A bit too unfriendly, is how I'll put it. I did use a couple potions. My poor money. Oh, my dude died as well. Not having... Oh, I don't have bloody money. Not having the mercenaries, I think we'll see what happens. Maybe they will introduce them, maybe they won't. The AI companions that do combat with you, Vigo in one scene, and... I'll just get some money. And Nayrel, they're pretty much useless. Nayrel does knock enemies over, so maybe that's a value. Honestly, no. So it's the kind of the question where you'd like, would you want them if they're that useless? And maybe the answer is yes. So let's jump out. And I'll just jump into some sort of reasonable character. Now, as for the differences between console ports, PC ports, at this point in Diablo 2 Resurrected, there's really no difference. The only thing is just a limitation in terms of how quickly you can create games and cycle through games. It's just maybe an extra 10, 20 seconds on console, just because of the typing and you need to plug your keyboard in and all that sort of stuff. But at the same time, you have all this We can jump straight into a cows match. We had the lobbies. Now, this wasn't originally in this version, so this is one of the things that's changed. The nature of the... Oh, this game might already be over. The nature of this multiplayer... let's get over that. Oh, I don't even have... Come on, anything still alive? I'm wonderful. So the nature of this multiplayer is, again, it's the most accessible, I think, with the lobbies, because you're going to have so many public lobbies. People go through them so quickly. Take that. That they don't worry so much. It's not so... You don't notice like a lag going between zones like you do in D4, and it's... I don't know. I felt like it's one of the greatest things about Diablo 2 Diablo 2 was just that you could play with other people so easily. And that's one of the things going to D3 I was so disappointed with. Which, again, you still can play with others. It's just... It's more onerous because, again, they ditched the lobby system. So the lobby system I still think is the best part. And it was so disappointing when Diablo 2 Resurrected released. Even with all of its bugs and took ages and had massive issues with queues and stuff like that. On console, you couldn't have lobbies for some reason. Just on a game that's 20 odd years old, you couldn't have lobbies. A primary feature of the original PC game. It just absolutely blew my mind that there was no lobbies. It was laughable. Oh, no more. Oh, get over there. So we've got remove basic attack, remove the primary point of weapons to actually hit enemies. So you sort of... Oh, that person just died. So you create this whole vague attack power bullcrap, and then you veil it with all these slight percentage increases to damage, and then it just becomes this really precise numbers game. But that said, you can do the same thing here, but it's just... I feel like you have more of a tangible concept of the increase in power that you get. The progression is a bit more apparent, and that can be just finding one weapon can change your build completely, rather than you trying to find things that fit the sort of the message you're going for. This one in Diablo 2, the drops did change your build massively, and again that meant that the lower likelihood of getting amazing gear all the time actually created that sort of impetus on collecting it, and then again the trading value increased, and then you could do the real money trading, which is the negatives of it. So the drop rate is the other point, and I'm kind of going on both sides here. I'm on the fence with the drop rate, because it was great to have so many legendaries just because you could change the aspects in D4 beta, but at the same time you don't appreciate the legendaries if you get 1 million of them. So it's that kind of, what matters more? You appreciating the rareness of them, or them being useful and making it easier for you to get through? So again, the casual gamer benefits when the legendaries aren't as rare, particularly early on, and then later on you can have much rarer uniques, because again we haven't, the whole legendary versus unique thing is a big part of the game, but they've done a good job of explaining that there is a higher level of legendary which is unique, which you can't do anything with, you can't salvage and all that sort of stuff. Alright, let's get out. And we'll just jump into the sorceress and show you that they've always been OP. Where can we go? Calculating, how long's that one been on? 5 minutes, probably over. Maybe not, we'll see. That's probably the game I just left. So the other thing I want to talk about. So with the anything good there? No, that's all trash. Ah, okay. Square. So Frozen Orb got nerfed in D4. It's just trash in comparison to what it's like in Diablo 2, which is quite sad. A number of the skills that moved across... Oh, it's just a crappy tier room. They just don't look anything like their former selves. So it's... And that's the next point I want to talk about. Let me just make sure there's other people. Yeah. So teleport on console is absolutely trash. That's one thing I'm gonna... I know it's a tricky thing to do with the sticks because you can't technically aim exactly where you want to go with the controller. You can just sort of pick a direction and then it'll go the screen length in that direction. But it is so diminished in D4 in the beta. It was so much shorter that it was disappointing. You couldn't really go through the whole area. Again, the cooldowns and stuff like that. Having a cooldown like that, I can understand why they did it from a loading between zones point of view. I think it does make some sort of sense there because they've had issues. And if you can just go like all the way through. Oh, I got caught there. Then it does, you know, cause that sort of issue. Now, one thing they did maintain was that Blizzard maintained its place as one of the best spells. If anything, I'm trying to think, it is better, it lasts longer, and it covers more of an area. I feel like it isn't quite as impactful early on. But yes, Blizzard is awesome, always has been. Oh, let's stick with this dude. Oh, I've got to put on my R2 triangle. Here we go. That's just a shitty hit. He's using telekinesis, which is something they removed, which, even though it should be fine, because telekinesis was something you could use to steal loot from other people, because you could pick up items from a certain distance away. But again, everyone has their own loot, so I don't really know why they didn't keep it. Oh, my damage is so bad. They nerfed ice. It used to be unbelievably OP, and now it's been nerfed. A little bit. They nerfed it so many times it's hard to... There's no point even going back there. Alright. Let's get out of here. Alright. Anything else left to say? I'll talk more later in more videos. But this one, I just want to say, console aRPGs, they're fine. And people talking about... Well, the only real issue is the video. When you make a video in the D4 beta, every time you went to share, create, it would slow down the game, and the final product on YouTube was just trash. So needlessly bright, it was stupid. It would really confuse the heck out of me why it was so bad. So that's one thing I hope they fix, because they want to present the game in the best light. So when people make clips and videos and they put them on the internet and they look like shit, you're not helping yourself. You're not helping. As for it being like D3, it is different to D3. So one of the things that people talk about in terms of end game and progression and things like that, and and acts and things, and I'm like, what are you talking about? It's an open world game. There's level limits or level caps in the surrounding areas. So as you progress, you can jump ahead. If you can manage the mobs, say with just an AoE, a crowd controlling spell, or an ability that slows them down, and just run past them, you can get to the later areas early on. And if you have stacks of cash from a previous character, you can buy good items early on. So much carried over between characters. You can build an awesome character because your other characters already grabbed their stuff, and then as soon as they get to town, you can grab a whole bunch of stuff on, and then you can move on. You can be overpowered. You can beat the level 25 enemies as a level 20, or level 35 as a level 20, or whatever, because you could have the items set up. The legendary aspects with the defensive mods to keep you alive set up for the second and third character. Now, this is like, oh, why do you want to make multiple characters? Because you make multiple characters. That's what Diablo's all about. I mean, Jesus. You make one of each class. They're talking about, you know, oh, if you stuff your build up. Yes, I'm happy with the refund thing. I know it's a compromise. It's okay. I'm sure, again, it gets expensive towards the end, but you got more money, it balances out. Not a big deal. But if the game isn't good enough to play through multiple times on different characters, it ain't that good. And that's the same for every aRPG. We talk about PoE and the first couple acts, and whether or not you think that it does pick up in Act 4, Act 5, Act 6, Act 7. That story certainly gets much better as you go through it. But going through the story multiple times, it's boring. It gets tiring. And the reality is, Diablo 2, its story is much better. Much more succinct. It has... Let's do that. This is what the next thing. The final thing I'm going to talk about. Let's just jump into this Necromancer. See, we've got different characters. See? Let's... Hell's fine. Hell is fine. What do we have? What do we have in Diablo 2? What do we have? The most important thing.
Where can I take you? Greetings.
Bloody characters you remember.
Yes?
Oh, I gotta resurrect my dude because they was die. I have no money again! I tell you, you're always running out of money in this.
Good day. If you fail to destroy Blood Raven, I fear that our order will perish forever.
So we don't have massive bloody lines.
I am Akara, High Priestess of the Sisterhood of the Sightless Eye. I welcome you, traveler, to our camp, but I'm afraid I can offer you but poor shelter within these rickety walls. You see, our ancient sisterhood has fallen under a strange curse. The mighty citadel, from which we have guarded the gates to the east for generations, has been corrupted by the evil demoness Andariel. I still can't believe it. But she turned many of our sister rogues again.
So you get the point. You get the point here. The point? Do you get the point? The actual characters who are the merchants are actual characters. So again, I hope to goodness gracious they haven't finalized.
Hi there, I'm Charcy. The black
Everyone knows Chassis. Jesus. But, you know, it's this sort of... They are iconic characters.
Yes? Well, Reeve was kind enough to let me travel with his...
And they talk about each other.
A necromancer. I hoped I'd never have to lay my eyes on one.
And then whatever character you pick, there's character-specific dialogue for some characters. So they go, oh my goodness. It's a paladin, or it's a necromancer, or it's a sorceress in Act 2. So we have this... There's a feeling. A different feeling. Now, there's an oppressive feeling as well, in that you have to progress through the linear paths. And this is the same for PoE. Again, you're exploring your build. The build exploring, as opposed to Diablo 2, where it's less exploring and more you determine what you're going to do, and you're really just building up to your optimum. You're trying to build up to your peak. You know where your goal is, and you know what you need to fulfill that goal, but it's just how you work your way there. And the challenges of the early stages being more challenging, and then you hit a sort of a plateau where you just sort of skyrocket in levels. You get to hell, and then it's hard as nuts, and you just get absolutely smashed, and then you just, oh my goodness, and then you've got to prepare, you've got to redouble your efforts and get stronger.
Good day. I know much about the ancient religions. I was trained as a paladin of Zakarum in the Eastern Korest.
So having the characters in the world have classes. The NPCs, a lot of them associated with classes. So they have...
How do I know I can trust you? You may be as shifty as that pack rat Elzix who runs the inn. But if you need a potion, though, I suppose I can make you one. For a price, of course.
And I love how they talk about each other. It's so important for the NPCs to bring life to the world and the towns. And I feel like the towns, they're just meaningless for the most part. Apart from the sister, who you go through the cellars with, and her side quest chain, I think is one of the best in the beta. Better than the main story in terms of actually you get to like a character, except for Vigo. Vigo's great. So, and Vigo has an arc, you know, he has a redemption arc. So I feel like Neyrelle is a terrible character, and they've totally... She's shockingly bad.
That you are responsible for banishing Andariel back to the burning hells. I'm impressed, stranger. That couldn't have been easy. My name is Drognan, and I know what you're up against, my friend. You ought to look over my inventory of items for trade.
They're just a million times better. They're just a million times better. And they feel like they...
Greetings. I'll bet you wonder how this town manages to stay safe with all the trouble going on out in the desert. Well, I can tell you that it's got nothing to do with the local town guards. They're all in the palace for some reason.
Yeah, and we allude to the story things. And then we go over to the options. We go to the... Okay, we actually have a performance option, which we don't have in the bloody Diablo 4 beta. We actually have resolution options. Yeah, so it's at 800. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. And we actually have some options. I don't know why the options things were so weird. Yes, let's do it. It's fine. Music. Our final topic. The music in Diablo 2 is legendary. Let me turn it down. Oh god, music. Yes, yes, yes. I have to turn it. I'll turn it off. Turn it off. But yeah. Absolutely legendary. Now, the music in the Diablo 4 beta, I felt like at times it was not good, and at other times it was actually okay. So some of the songs in the hub, the main city area where everyone was, they weren't very good. They're very whiny, and I didn't like them. And then in battle and things, I felt like things improved. In the open world areas, it improved to the point where I wasn't annoyed by it. Now, I'm quite critical on music at times, so as you'll see on my channel, I've got a video I did say the starting music in Elden Ring is terrible. In the first area, it is the worst ambient music in any Souls game. It is terrible. It's absolutely appallingly bad. But back to D4. Memorable characters as the NPCs merchants. We need those. Please God, do something. The jeweler, and the other dude. They can be much more memorable, much more exotically dressed, much more flamboyant. Something going on, some sort of talking, maybe some side quests. The characters do give you side quests. Apart from the guy who loses his eyeballs and then you get his eyeballs and then he runs off and randomly disappears. And then Sister, one of the sisters, is good. There's really not a lot of impact. And it feels more MMO-like in terms of it being just, you fetch the thing and you go back and then it's... And there's barely any fetch quests in this. We'll argue. We can argue. But maybe if you talk about... So let's go Riverflame. So we talk about the atmosphere and the changing in the environment and things, and that's going to be a really big part about when the game actually releases and people can explore everywhere else but the first starter section. Oh, can I kill anything? Yeah, I'm not gonna. This character here is not particularly well geared, as it were, for the build that I'm running. It is Look, it's an angel. Isn't that amazing? You've never seen an angel before.
It's good to see you again, hero. Mephisto's defeat is a great victory for the light. I knew that you would eventually find your way here.
Okay.
The pandemonium.
Yeah. So let's talk to the main man.
Stay a while and listen. Can you believe this place? Did you ever dare to dream that you'd one day stand upon the crossroads between heaven and hell? This pandemonium fortress is truly miraculous. However, your journey is not yet over. Diablo still roams free in hell, marshaling his demonic forces. Only when he is beaten will our world finally have peace. Hurry now. The sands of time slow for no one.
So the clarity of the story, I think, is important to talk about just for this last little minute. All right, come on.
Greetings.
And these are some of the weakest.
What do you need?
Because they don't even have talk functions. They never even added talking dialogue for Jamela and Halbu. So this is kind of where I felt a little disappointed that this guy didn't even have talking things. But the clarity of the story. Diablo 2. What's the goal? Kill Diablo. And then you go to the Act 5 and you got all the Act 5 stuff. But this particular D4, I kind of have some questions because it's hinted by one of the NPCs, the one who gets 2 little cutscene dialogue scenes, that you don't necessarily side with the angel versus maybe you join Lilith. So I'm wondering if we have a choice. So this might be a huge moment in really the game. The whole point of the game is that maybe you do choose between helping Lilith, because Lilith doesn't appear to be aligned with Hell for the most part, because she's not working with the Lords of Hell, because she's talking about, oh, we've got to fight it, got to be ready for their arrival. Maybe fight against them. Maybe she is aligned with them. But the way she talks, it seems like there's 3 factions. Maybe 4 if you want to include the suspicious dog, the bloodied hound. And maybe he's just the representative of the Lords of Hell. So he's a Lord of Hell, and his side want to come in. But Lilith doesn't want them to be in control. She wants to be in control. So she'll have to compete with the Lords of Hell, because it's not like they're friends. And then we've got the angels. Then we have a totally separate faction, which is the angels themselves. We haven't even met yet, because we've only met the fallen-ish angel, Inarius, and we haven't met the actual representatives of heaven at the time, because we did that in D3. We went there and all that sort of stuff happened. A bit more, way too much going on. Way too much going on in D3. It's good though, I think, for a couple acts, and I think is memorable in ways that's good. But at the same time, bit going on. So humans aligned with Inarius, is that a good idea? It's the only bastion of hope they've got, even though he's not really doing much, just being an asshole. And so if we have a choice, it'd be great, because we don't get much choice in aRPGs. Apart from skills and things, we don't get story choice. So that will be, again, really nice to have. You could join with Lilith and then we battle. Or the guy in the dialogue cutscene, if you know what I'm talking about, he does hint that there is some sort of, well, I thought they'd help us fight against Lilith and then they didn't. So it's like, oh. But what would be the point? What would be the incentive? What do we get out of it? What do we get at the end? People talk about endgame, but I'm like, what's the reward for actually beating the game? Is it just more legendary items? Is there something special? Because you could do class-wide bonus for beating the game. Something like a new character starts with like at level 20 or level 10 or level 50. You know, you can. There's so much more that can be done. So many more options that can be explored. And I'm happy to see it. We'll see what we do. We'll see what they do. I hope they, again, for console, there's a whole number of issues. Whether we get a cube or not, we don't. I'm not sure. They didn't do the charms, which is I'm glad, because I actually think charms are terrible. One of the worst things in Diablo 2 in the expanded version, because they just take up inventory space, and it's like I want to collect loot. I don't want to have to only pick up one item at a time, and then I've got the rest of these are charms. It's rune words. Whether we'll get rune words eventually, I would assume we would. But having said that, I haven't seen many items with 3 sockets. Everything's 1 socket or 2 sockets. So I'm not sure how they're going to do the rune words. Whether it's just 2 socket rune word or 1 socket rune word and it's like a whole phrase. Or whether you have to combine, say, your example is, come on. Oh, I don't have one on there. Don't have any rune words on this thing? Ridiculous. So whether you have, say, you find the runes and you actually have to combine the runes together to make a rune word, then you put that in the 1 socket that's empty in an item. So you put a shale and an eth or whatever. Probably shale thumb. Whether you chuck your pull rune. So it'll be interesting to see whether they're just much more powerful, so that they're an individual one that's much more powerful, or whether you combine multiple together to form the actual rune word then that goes in the item, or whether or not you need to do a base that has 3 sockets and they introduce more socketed items in future that there are only 4 grey items. So it kind of changes the way you were filtering loot with your sound, which you can filter loot with audio, which was an interesting function I thought they added. But having said that, we need a proper loot filter. So we don't even have a loot filter in here, unfortunately. Yeah, come on. Auto goal pickup, all that sort of stuff. It's all here already. There's so much that's been done before that they didn't just carry over, which is interesting. A lot of controller settings we didn't get. Vibration, we didn't get a vibration option on D4, which is strange. So there's a bit of an inconsistency. I feel like you should have a vibration even when you play as an assassin, rogue, and you throw an item and you hit an enemy. I still think you should have a tiny vibration from that. Again, it's not a melee hitting, but I feel like there's some sort of positive feeling when you kill an enemy and it does the vibration, just like every sort of game. Just a slight vibration on a PS5 controller. They can do all sorts of crazy stuff with the haptic feedback. So again, there's not a lot of integration with the functionality of the console in particular, which I understand because they're on multiple devices and things, but at the same time, it's a little bit disappointing. One of the things we also didn't get was a filtering levels. So one thing that the world boss, people concerned about lower level people being in there, and you have no choice of filtering. Again, the filtering only works because of lobbies. But having said that, you can still make allowances for filtering in the open world sort of sections. You could do just lower level people or same level people, or with the amount of people playing the game and the amount of times it loads instances of the map segments that as you go from zone to zone, it does do a little bit of lag and it loads the new one. So basically it's loading a lobby with people in it and then you're joining them. So, and just in more of a seamless way, but at the same time, it'd be great to have a choice. It'd be great if, again, one of the good things about the multiplayer is that it shows where your teammates are on the map. And that's really nice. I think it's great because it means all 4 of you can actually explore different places at the same time, and it doesn't force you to be together, which, when you think it like that, that's a tremendous achievement. And again, must be the main reason why they didn't do 8 players, because if you did 8, then you have 8 different people, maybe all 8 of them go to a different dungeon at the same time. And then, you have that sort of clash. So I think the 4 makes sense from that point of view. Again, we're talking you need to have the larger party for the world boss. That's an absolute no-brainer. Everyone knows that. apart from that, I think compared to D2, there's major. I feel like the oppressiveness of the linear nature of the game, even though you can go back to lower other areas and level up and sort of grind and all sort of stuff like that, you have a natural. There is a progression and there is a story, and this is where it's going. That kind of locks you in a way that builds the thematic pressure in terms of the anxiety and the actual you're fighting demons and the actual feeling of being in this hellish world when you have to beat Duriel to get through Act 2. You have to beat the boss. You have to beat them. And then they're really tough, and then it's like you have to rise to the challenge to get through, as opposed to being able to, say, Elden Ring style, you can't beat Margit. You can go off and explore and level up and go around. In Diablo 2, you've got to get through, but you can go back and level up, but there is limits to how much you can level up. They diminish your experience gain, which again, they diminish your experience gain in D4 because you can't go in a high level area, kill high level dudes, and get a huge XP increase because you have to be within that range. Which I think maybe that's something they should change, just because it'll enable players who have gear from their other characters that they carry over onto a new character to go be a level 10, go beat up level 30s in the level 30 area, and then shoot up in levels really fast. They don't have to do a bunch of stupid side quests, and they can progress much faster. They still have to do the onerous main quest, but it is what it is. So I feel like, or maybe they don't even need to do the main quests. This is kind of the point I'm going with. That if, once the game is fully released and you can explore the entire world, what is stopping you just exploring the whole world and leveling up on your own, not doing the main quests, not even doing them? Maybe you don't get to fight the final boss unless you've done the main quests. I can understand that. That's totally reasonable, but you can fight it with other people. Maybe it still counts. And that's, again, the other point. Shared progression is kind of a big question about if you join other people's games, if they're ahead of you. So when you do that, it says you're in their world, and then it kind of gets a bit, wait a second, what if they've unlocked other areas? Say there's locked off zones because you have to do, say, certain quests to knock a gate down, to open up an area or here or there. What happens if you jump in someone's game and they've progressed there, but you haven't, and you go in those areas, you do some side quests, and then they leave, and then you're in their world, and then there's a bit of this, all these finer details. No one's talking about this part. This is the part that I'm talking about. But it's interesting to think about how it's going to go, how the end game really will be, because how will you even get there if people in your crew don't even finish the main quests? They've just leveled up to 100 and they're on the Paragon board and doing all that stuff, and they've never done the main quests. Does that mean they can't go to the higher world tier? Do you have to do the main quest to go up the world tier? Or you can go up the world tier anytime. So maybe it doesn't even matter. So would you call it end game if it's not after you've done the main quest, beaten the main villain? Is it? That's kind of where this is this grey area about the introducing the wild element in that the open worldness, giving the player choice. So again, you can say dungeons are repetitive, but like every open world game, they offer you the same thing to do multiple times, but they're not telling you to do it the same way every time. Now, the mechanics of the dungeons themselves and the layouts, they may be repetitive, totally agree. But at the same time, you're not the same. You're different every time. That's what all open world games lean into, and that's what a dev can always respond to. And they'll say, someone says that the dungeons are all the same, and they go, well, you're not the same. You've got a different build. You're trying different things out. You're playing with other people, maybe you're not. If you do, they'll go faster, because you can split up, and then someone grabs that, someone grabs that. Wait a second, the dungeons are designed for 4 players. Oh no, who would have thought? It was designed for party play. Oh, solos be damned. Maybe that's because they think it'll do better in that way. Who knows? It seems very likely. But that said, the way that you join up with others, I feel like it could be a little bit better. So you could party up easier is my hope. And then also disconnect from parties, which you can disconnect quite easy anyway. So I think partying up should be easier and probably more encouraged in terms of XP gain being, which it is, but just being more obvious, having more higher rarity of items drop with a group. And then again, you're talking about people being upset that they have to force play with other people. You have to offer incentives and then make it really easy. Just one click, you ask to invite them, which you do, and then you can say yes, and they're going to say yes again. It's interesting. What lies before us. So we have the next beta coming up, with the druids and the necros, and we'll get to see if they can compete with the sorceress and the sorceress, wizard, sorcerer. It's not right to call it sorceress anymore, is it? And then is barbarian a male connotated thing? Not really. Maybe. Barbariana. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the druid works, because again, druids can be. Oh, let's just go in as a druid. Where's the druid? There we go. Yep. Give me cows. Someone, please. Ugh. How long's that one been on? 40 minutes? That's how long my video's been going. Okay, private. Nightmare. So the druid class is really interesting because it offers more specialization in terms of you can summon, which I don't know if we'll have the summoning as well as they fixed it up in D2. So one of the things, the biggest problems with druids were that they were terrible in terms of summoning druids. Let's go to Stonyfield. And they fixed it eventually. And we're talking 20 years later. They fixed it, or 18 years later. Expansion came out a couple of years. So in the original, you couldn't summon multiple different types. Yes. And therefore you could only have like a bear, because that was your best one. So now they fixed it up, it's great. I mean, they're a little light on damage towards the end, but it is what it is. And they're a little slow. But it'll be interesting to see. Oh, what am I doing? There it is. What they do with the transformations. So one of the things with the wolf form was always faster, the bear form did more damage. And whether they, because we have a lot more skill there, I feel like... Killed him. Druids have a lot of room to explore in their build, as opposed to, say, sorceress, which is, again, lots of the spells carry over. So a lot of the spells have been from previous games, particularly D2. And for druid, though, there's lots of opportunity to explore the skill tree, because we have not a lot, to be perfectly honest. Not a lot of skills specific for each transformation. So we can explore that. Now, and they also have an elemental. So they have a sorceress angle. So they've got the big earth spells and the fire spells and tornado spells. Wind. And so it'll be really interesting. Because, again, they've got so much diversity in the class. Whether the summoning will have any really value as the druid, or whether it's just best to transform. And you can do pure transform, or you can do, do physical damage, or you can do fire claws. So it's a really viable class to explore the fantasy. And that's really good. I think that's, compared to every other class, the druid has the most in terms of this opportunity to be different. Whether or not, again, the meta is using magic, it always is. With the druid, the current one, the summoning was trash. Later on it was trash. And it was all just about using elemental stuff. And then maybe if you can break the game with attack speed, passing certain breakpoints, you could be unbelievably fast with your transformation. And then we have the Necro, and the Necro will have the curses and the bones, the summoning, all that sort of stuff. And again, the Necro has always been the beginner friendly, most friendly one. And so it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds from the fantasy point of view. Because there is a bear tribe, so I was really interested in seeing the bear tribe actually turn into bears, but they don't. So we'll see how, if they have the what's with the skill tree, the other bit of it in D4. So like we had the enchantments on sorceress, we have the weapon technique on barbarian, which we couldn't access because you had to go to the top left, and it was just like the stupidest thing they could ever do to barbarian. That's why barbarian struggled. But the general, again, there's some people who worked it out and got really good, but in general it struggled because the weapon technique was locked off. So again, they held it back on purpose. So it was a bit of a But then again, maybe the area where you learn it sort of fits the fantasy better. The assassin one is just some guy hidden behind a tent. And the sorceress one is a random dude who just appears at a hut. So, it's not like they put too much effort into the fantasy of the other ones, but we'll see. But lots to look forward to. Lots of issues they need to fix. Just a simple one. Just the bar. Come on. Simple. The potion system, I'm happy with it. Well enough. It's always nice not to have to carry all these potions and do all that sort of stuff. Mercenaries, will see what they do, because it might be necessary to have some sort of support. The combining. Okay, this is another issue I have. So, do I even have bloody one of these characters? Oh, I'm talking for so long. I hope you're still paying attention at this point. Do I even have one? Oh, don't tell me I don't even have one set up. There we go. Yep. So, okay. So the combining. Let's go new character. It's fine. So the combining of the Amazon, the assassin, these two, combining these two together to make the rogue, I think was incredibly stupid. Because I felt like the Amazon has enough identity on its own with the bow or the spear to be worthwhile. And the same with the assassin, with having martial arts and having traps, being a traps in, and then having a shadow arts where you can have a clone. I feel like these two are distinct enough that you didn't need to combine them. So I don't like it at all, the rogue, what they've done to it. And the bow animations feel a bit off. I don't like the way it hits. So yeah, I just did a full rupture build. So I'm throwing the triple knives, and that was it. Triple knives, and then I would do maybe the clone, which only lasts a little period of time. The clone is garbage in comparison to the assassin's clone. The assassin's clone is OP though in comparison. I mean, it's just his second one. You got a second one of yourself. But losing the Amazon, having no spear specific build, I think is sad. So I feel like we've diminished in a number of ways, but at the same time we have the technique stuff. Although the technique thing, the combo, and then the targeting the certain enemy, I don't really give a crap about with the rogue. Honestly, it means nothing to me because I'm just using the basic attack because that's the best attack, and just stacking vulnerability and just obliterating enemies. I mean, just getting the sacks of vulnerability and then just going blah 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 blah. So it is sad that we missed a few things. Whether they add I have heard the Valkyrie talked about, and whether or not that's a mix of Amazon and Paladin. So we have spear, skill tree sort of stuff, and we have Paladin. I don't really... I would like just Paladin, but I played enough Paladin. I probably put down too much Paladin. But it's just interesting the way that they've thought about these things. And got rid of martial arts. Even though they buffed martial arts in Diablo Resurrected and they made it good again. You know, they've done so much to make it work. So many years later. It's all interesting. I think it's interesting. And I mean, can they make the NPCs more memorable? The general merchants, can they make them more entertaining or more... Can they appreciate them more, I think is probably the better way to put it. Can they appreciate their own creations better? Or is it more like the generic MMO thing where there's so many NPCs that don't matter, and then there are only a couple that do matter, and then one of them that they think matters, like Nairel, it's just like, what the heck are you doing? And then the final issue I have. See, I'm getting there. I've said final issue like 5 times. The final issue I have, in the context of Diablo 2 versus Diablo 4, why? Why Diablo 4? Why are we special? Are we special? Is it just because we had a couple petals of Lilith's blood? Is that it? Why are we special? Diablo 3 went with the whole we're special being type situation, and I thought that was, I think it's good to have that sort of thing. Whether it was executed perfectly, we can argue. Diablo 2, you come to these lands to help. Why have you come here to help? They had backstory for each of the characters. And their backstory in Diablo 3 as well. But I like backstory for the character class as to why they're there. Now, the tricky part is they have character customization, so we can change our gender and etc. Not that that should matter, but it was set for each character, and they had and it was easier to write lore when you didn't have the choice, but now we have the choice. They just gone with don't even bother. And we need it. I need it. Because I still don't know why we listen to Nayrel when she tells us to do stuff. I don't understand why we listen to anyone. So it makes me want to go, I don't want to do the main quests. I don't want to listen to these people telling me what to do. We're 55 minutes in. Fuck them. Why would I do it? Why would I do what they tell me to do? Where is the investment on my side? Where's the heart? Apart from Vigo. Where's the incentive? What has Lilith done to me? How has she wronged me? She made some people go crazy and they drugged me and they tried to chop me up. Is that it? Is that all the motivation we've got? So I want us to get to the front line of the war. I want us to feel like the soldiers matter. We want to know some soldiers, they die. We need a few more. We need a lot more emotional weight to the story. At the minute, I still feel like we could choose at the end between them. Inarius needs to convince us to help. Not us convince him to help. I feel like this is where it's sitting. Is we're begging everyone else, and then they're telling us what to do. And I'm like, that ain't it. That ain't aRPG. We are the hero. You are the hero. No one telling you what to do, and you just blindly doing it. So this is kind of where I felt like the integration with looking at other games. You can look at Fallout. I think Fallout's a great example because you can shit talk. You can say a whole bunch of shit, and you can say no at times. Not all the time, of course. I know there's alternate things, but you can say no. You can just shoot people. But it's this feeling of we're going quietly, and then where Nayrel? Where are you, Nayrel? It's like, mate, you just killed 10 million demons. You ain't taking shit from anyone. You ain't listening to anyone unless they've killed 100 million demons. Then you're listening to them. I'm interested to see how they create NPCs that you do side quests with who actually can wreck demons and earn your respect. Because no one has my respect in the world. Except for Vigo, who sacrificed himself. And again, if you haven't seen it, I'm sorry. But yeah, he actually did earn my respect at the end. Because he was there, and he was part of the boss fight, and he was a crucial part of the mechanic, countering the mechanic. So, and that was okay. I was happy with that. Even though, again, maybe you shouldn't have that sort of thing. You should be able to counter it on your own. I was happy with that because it brought value to his character without diminishing our character. And that's kind of where this story sits for me. I'm worried that it'll build up other characters, NPCs, at the cost of you and your character and your journey. Like it has some of the cutscenes where they do dialogue cutscenes where it diminishes you greatly and says you don't matter. And we needed them more than they needed us. And it's like, no, we killed 10 million demons. We're the most important character in the world. And that's really important because as you build up the power fantasy and get stronger and stronger, you need to feel like you are the most important character. Why play a game where you are the hero of civilization and they say, no, you weren't the most important. You're just an errand boy, errand girl. Yeah, I'll leave it there. It's been Frosty510, rambling on. Diablo 2 versus Diablo 4. 4 hours. I've started differently, but I always I work out the title of the video at the end of the video. That's my style. It's been Frosty510. Like and subscribe. And, yeah, let's put on a high level one because it looks cooler. Yeah, is anyone in hell? That'd be good if they were in hell. Look at that barbarian. I'll catch you next time. Leave some comments. Tell me what you think. Any of my points resonated with you? Anything irritated you? And if you watched the whole video, I'm very thankful. Please subscribe. If you watched the whole thing, might as well. Alright then. Bye-bye.